Hi, we're going to look today at a variety of mystery crime digest magazines. These are kind of the offbeat ones, not offbeat because there's a title called Offbeat, and which we're going to get into later. But these are kind of short run series and kind of oddball mystery digest, crime digests. And these are the spines of them. There's about 3 dozen. And we're going to take a quick look at some of them now. Mystery Digest magazine. There's at least 5 of them that I have. The December 1958 issue has a story by Cornell Woolrich, also Donald Westlake, Senator Saint, Wenzel Brown, and Arnold Marmor, who was a friend of mine who lived in Queens. And this is Mystery Digest. The March 59 issue has stories by Norman Daniels and a cover story, Decoy for Murder, by Donald Westlake, among others. It shows a charming illustration of a ghoulish guy with a dead woman's body in a wheelbarrow. The July 58 issue contains Ben Hecht, C.S. Forrester, Edward D. Hawk, and others. And these are not very cool with the cover art. I mean, they're just kind of plain. Some of these are plain. Some of them have great cover art. It depends what what the magazine is. I think there's 5 issues of this magazine, Mystery Digest. The May 57 issue contains a novel, I'll Cut Your Throat Again, Kathleen, by Frederick Brown. Also Harlan Ellison's Stand Still and Die, Henry Slessor. The Strange Case of Washington Irving Bishop by Walter B. Gibson and William P. McIver. So there's some good stuff in this issue. Some good authors and good reading. And the January 59 issue contains Ed Lacey, Charles Beaumont, Frederick Brown, Stuart Palmer, who was always very good. And that has a little bit of an illustration. Crime Lab is a magazine that has some great cover art. I think there's only 2 issues of this one. This is the May 55 issue. And on the back cover, it's got like a kind of a...
That's Lila.
Lila, that is Lila, a model in a provocative pose. And the December 1954 issue, which contains about 7 stories. Contains the Black Swan scandal and Triple Cross. Strange, the magazine of mystery, has at least 3 issues. The July 1952 issue has a great cover, great good girl art cover, and this was used on a handy book later on. The May 52 issue contains Charles Boswell and other authors, true crime, true mystery. And the March 1952 issue, Prophet Without Honor, Mystery of the Bell Witch, The Artful Forger, Fires of Love, The Man Who Swindled Himself, and others. Craig Rice Crime Digest and Mystery Digest. As far as I know, there's the Bonded books. Leslie Charteris had published Bonded books in the 40s, and the Craig Rice Mystery Digest from 1945 and this is Bonded Anthology number 12, because they had different anthologies in their series, but there were different titles for magazines. So the Craig Rice Mystery Digest, this is the first one, and it included Craig Rice, Dorothy Hughes. Then there was the Bonded 1 and 2 Craig Rice Crime Digest, and this is from 1946, and it contains Carter Dixon, Craig Rice. It's volume 1, and volume 2 contains Richard Powell, Lawrence Treat, and the back covers were just showing the Bonded logo with the skeleton in the grasping the iconic logo. Ten Perfect Crimes is Rainbow Book number 103. This has nothing to do with Rainbow Books, the Sleazy Digest series from the 50s. This is from about 1955. Contains The Black Dahlia, Diamonds, Pretty Pink Toes, and Homicide. The Only Clues, Sex and Alcohol. The 55 Toupee Murders, $2 million Brinks Robbery. So this is all true crime also, again in digest size. Two-book mystery magazine was published by Golden Willow Press. Golden Willow books, their digest series, they're all pretty scarce. And this two-book series, digest mystery magazine, is really scarce. Number 1 is from February 1946, and it's a two-book mystery magazine. No Pockets in a Shroud and Dressed to Kill. I'll put that over here, actually. That's number 1. And number 2, from June 1946, The League of Bald Men and Troubleshooter. These are pretty scarce. Conflict, number 1 from 1953, Stories of Suspense. Seems like this was the only issue. It contained Charlotte Armstrong, Roy Huggins, Walt Grove, and William P. McGivern, and Hollywood Confidential, great woman falling down a stairwell. Scary, terrifying photo cover. Don Pendleton's The Executioner magazine. There's a few of them I'm missing, but the ones that I have the May 1975 issue. Contains Gil Brewer, Edward Wellen, and others. That's the May 75. The June 75 issue, this is number 6, also contains Gil Brewer and others. Don Pendleton's The Executioner magazine. The April 1975 issue contains Gil Brewer and 2 other stories by him under pseudonym. And in the August 75 issue, it's just the Executioner Mystery Magazine, and it has Richard Deming and Talmadge Powell and others. That's 4 of them, and I think there's 6 altogether. Bestseller Mystery Magazine, number 8 is from September It's a Mercury publication, and that's that issue. And the next issue is the April, and it has Arthur P. Upfield as the cover story, The Bushman Who Came Back, or Murder in Eden, and also a story by Avram Davidson and Arthur Porges and others. And that's the Bestseller Mystery Magazine. Now I'm going to move these up, and I'm going to get to Ed McBain. I have at least 4 of these. But there's at least 6. So here's the June 1975 issue with John Lutz and an Ed McBain story in each issue. The April 1975 issue, stories by Ed McBain, Gil Brewer, and others. Urban Poetry's Tom Godwin, who was a science fiction writer. In there. The August 1975 issue, Ed McBain, Ed Hoke, and Ed McBain's 87th Precinct Mystery Magazine from May 1975. Contains Ed McBain, John Lutz, and Gary Bradner. It's probably one of his earliest stories. There's 3 issues of Accused, Detective Story Magazine. Actually, there's 4, and I'm missing number 3. So there's first issue is from January 1956 with a cover story by Richard Prather, Troubleshooter. Also Hal Elson, Richard Deming, Jack Webb, Gil Brewer, and Richard Marsden, who was Evan Hunter. Accused was kind of trying to be another version of Manhunt. Number 2 is the March 1956 issue with The Kids by Hal Elson, Frank Kane, Jack Webb, Gil Brewer, Ted Tomey, and Fletcher Flora. Now, I don't think I have Accused number 3. I don't. So, I don't have number 3. I have number 4, which is from July 1956. A Lady of Talent by Jonathan Craig. Also contains Hal Elson, Richard Deming, Max Franklin, who is, I believe, Gil Brewer, and Stephen Marlowe, and a story by B. Traven. The Accused was at least 4 issues, and is trying to be, I guess you can see, another version of Manhunt. A couple of these British ones got in here. John Creasy Mystery Magazine from February 1959, and it has stories by a mix of fiction and nonfiction. I don't recognize any of the authors, but it's a pretty scarce magazine. The next issue is the January 1959 issue, and it has a true crime story called The Monkey's Paw, and has a fiction by Ernest Dudley and Christiana Brand, Samuel Elkin, British writers, and a mix of fiction and nonfiction. I don't know how many issues there are of that. I have 2 of them. Here's some interesting odd ones. Inspector Malone's Mystery Magazine, September, October, They don't have a date on this. This is probably in the 40s. Kind of a scarce one. Fingerprints Detective. True crime, I'm pretty sure. This is from number 1, 1945. Number 2, 1946. Delayed Verdict, Three Wise Men of Babylon, Richard Sale. The question mark, Marjorie Allingham. So these may be fiction and instead of true crime. Fingerprints Detective. I'd have to look that up. A little odd item, Scientific Detective from October 1946. Is a slim digest, kind of off the beaten track, a little scarce. You don't see that often. And the last ones we'll look at is Private Eye, which was another kind of manhunt spin-off. Number 1 from 1953, and cover story is from July 1953. The cover story is Scott Jordan, Dig My Grave, but it also contains Stuart Sterling, Hal Masur, Cyril Kornbluth, and Day Keane. Nice Good Girl art cover on that. And Private Eye number 2, also from 1953, December. Too Beautiful to Burn by Jonathan Craig. Also a Johnny Little story by Frank Kane and others. There's Private Eye number 2. So there you get a kind of a offbeat selection of a bunch of variety of short-run mystery and crime digests that were published in the 40s and 50s. Some of them are, and also in the 60s and 70s with the Ed McBain and Don Pendleton books. So it spans a pretty long group of time, about 30 or 40 years, from the 40s to the 70s. Pretty cool magazines. Not most of them are not very common today, and they're just really cool to have, and I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you enjoy them, and we're going to look at more series of these kind of magazines in the future. These are some of the short run magazines with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 issues, and we're going to look at some of the ones with many more issues, and a lot of them are in my book. Which we're going to have to show you, which I've shown you before, and I'm going to show you again anyway. The Pulp Crime Digest, and this is a Gryphon book from 2004, and it also contains an introduction by Harlan Ellison, and also material on some of the digest magazines by Peter Infantino, and covers by Robert McGuire from Manhunt, which he let me use with his permission. And the book basically goes through all of these in black and white crime digest magazines with the contents and information, pseudonyms, and stuff like that. So just to let you know about that, anybody looking for more detail on these kinds of magazines, mystery crime magazines, digest magazines of especially the 40s, 50s, and 60s, will find a lot of it in this book that I wrote in 2004. It's out of print, but you may still find copies of it on eBay and other places. So with that, I just want to thank you for looking. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of these magazines. Maybe there were a few that you had never seen before, or some that you might want to collect. They're pretty cool. And if you did like this, give us a thumbs up and a like, and subscribe. And in the meantime, thanks for looking. See you next time.